Good morning, all of you. In this lecture, we studied chapter number 6, Biomolecules. Friends, you have learned that the living organism have cell, and the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of the living organism. The cell contains numerous biomolecules, and these biomolecules we studied in this chapter one by one. The first biomolecule is carbohydrate. Okay, the first one is the carbohydrate. Now, firstly, we studied the definition of carbohydrate. The carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehyde or polyhydroxyketone, or the substance which yield these on hydrolysis is called carbohydrate. Or simply you can say carbohydrate means hydrate of carbon. The carbohydrates are organic compound and are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. These are the organic compound and is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Here the proportion of hydrogen and oxygen is the same as in water, that is 2:1. Now the general formula of carbohydrate is CH2O. N is the general formula of carbohydrate. Now we study the classification of carbohydrate. The carbohydrates are classified into three subtypes or three types on the basis of presence of number of sugar unit. Okay, on the basis of number of presence of sugar unit, the carbohydrates are classified into monosaccharide, disaccharide and polysaccharide. These are the classification of carbohydrate. Now we study detail one by one. First, monosaccharide. The monosaccharide are the basic unit of complex carbohydrate. Is the basic unit. Monosaccharide is the basic unit of carbohydrate. It cannot be hydrolyzed into smaller molecule. The monosaccharides are generally crystalline in nature, also soluble in water and sweet to taste. These are the crystalline in nature. You know very well meaning of crystalline and amorphous. But here the monosaccharide is crystalline in nature. It is soluble in water and sweet to taste. Then the monosaccharide with aldehyde group means CHO group. The monosaccharide with aldehyde group is called aldose sugar. Okay. The monosaccharide with CHO group means aldose group is here. The monosaccharide with CHO group means aldehyde group is called aldose sugar. While monosaccharide with ketone group means C double bond O. Monosaccharide with ketone group is called ketose sugar. These are some characteristics. Okay, these are some characteristics of monosaccharide. And lastly, some example of monosaccharide, that is glucose, ribose. These are the examples of monosaccharide. Or you can see simply mono. Mono means single unit. Okay, mono means single. Then second is the disaccharide. Here the word di means two. The disaccharide made up of two monosaccharide unit. Means when two monosaccharide unit forms a disaccharide. The disaccharide, two monosaccharide are joined together by a covalent bond, and that covalent bond is called glycosidic bond. Okay. In disaccharide, the two monosaccharide are joined by a covalent bond, and that bond is called glycosidic bond. Next, the disaccharide are also crystalline in nature. It is also soluble in water, and it also sweet to taste as like the monosaccharide. And lastly, some example of disaccharide. These are sucrose, lactose. These are the example of disaccharide. Third, polysaccharide. Then again, here the word poly means many. Here the polysaccharide are complex carbohydrate formed by the condensation of large or many number of monosaccharide. Polysaccharides are amorphous, tasteless, insoluble in water. Here, remember that the polysaccharide are amorphous in nature. It is tasteless and is insoluble in water. Then the example of the polysaccharide are cellulose and glycogen, also starch. These are the some examples of the carbohydrate. And lastly, the significance of carbohydrate. There are many significance of carbohydrate, but we studied only some important significance. First, carbohydrate provide energy for metabolism. The energy is required for metabolism, and that energy is provided by carbohydrate. Second, monosaccharide, for example, glucose is the main substance for synthesis of ATP. For synthesis of ATP, glucose is the main substance, and ATP means adenosine triphosphate. Then disaccharide like lactose, which is found in milk, in many is mainly used to give energy to the babies in mammal. Disaccharide lactose, which is found in milk, is mainly used to give energy to babies in mammals. Next, polysaccharide acts as a structural compound of cell wall and cell membrane. These are the some important significance of carbohydrate. Here we studied the first molecule, that is the carbohydrate. In carbohydrate, we studied definition of carbohydrate, some characteristics of carbohydrate. Then we studied the classification of carbohydrate. Depends upon the number of sugar in it. That is mono, single, monosaccharide. Di means two, disaccharide. Poly means many, polysaccharide. And lastly, we studied the significance of carbohydrate. Second, lipid. We complete carbohydrate. Now second one is the lipid. Here we firstly studied the definition of lipid. The lipids are a group of heterogeneous compound like fat, oil, steroid, wax, etc. etc. They are made up of again carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. But here the proportion of hydrogen and oxygen is greater than 2:1. Next, lipids are insoluble in water, but they are soluble in organic solvent. And which are the organic solvent? Here, the lipid are insoluble in organic solvent, but they are soluble in organic solvent. Now, which are the organic solvent? It is the benzene, chloroform, ether. These are the organic solvent, and lipid are soluble in that organic solvent. Now, classification of lipids. The lipid are classified into three types: simple lipid, compound lipid, and steroids or derived lipid. We study again one by one in detail. First, simple lipid. The simple lipid are made of glycerol and fatty acid. Or the simple lipid are those lipid which made up of glycerol and fatty acid is called simple lipid. The simple lipids are ester of fatty acid with alcohol. They are ester of fatty acid with the alcohol. Now, what is mean by fatty acid? What is mean by fatty acid? Fatty acid is a long straight chain of carbon. A long straight chain of carbon atom with carboxyl group, means COOH group at the one end is called fatty acid. Fatty acid means a long straight chain of carbon atom with carboxyl group, that is COOH group at one end is called fatty acid. Then second type of lipid is the compound lipid. Again, first we study the definition of compound lipid. The lipid with fatty acid alcohol, the lipid with fatty acid alcohol and some other elements are called compound lipid. For example, nitrogen, phosphorus, protein, or compound lipid means the lipid with fatty acid alcohol and some other elements are called compound lipids. Some other elements means nitrogen, phosphorus, protein, sulfur, etc. are called compound lipid. For example, phospholipid. Here, phospho means phosphorus plus lipid is called phospholipid. Here, glycolipid means carbohydrate plus lipid is called glycolipid. And third part or third classification is steroid or derived lipid. The steroids lipid or derived lipid, they are hydrolytic product of lipid is called derived lipid. The hydrolytic product of lipid is called derived lipid. For example, steroid wax. Okay, for example, steroid and wax. Okay, in next lecture we discuss the next, that is the protein.